Hi everybody, and you're very welcome back to our next bonus webinar. Today I'm joined by Elizabeth O'Riordan, who is a work wellness expert. Again, continuing on from what we discussed with Dave Walsh recently, we're going to look at some of the more softer side of looking after yourself, looking after your team, and looking after your organisation, both now and as we transition to post-COVID workplaces, whether they be remote or back in the office. So Elizabeth, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm really looking forward to this. In terms of format, I suppose, Elizabeth, I'm going to hand over to you to give a little bit of an overview of yourself, your background, and three, I suppose, key strategies that people should be thinking about now in terms of work wellness. And then I've got a list of questions. This is an area that we got a lot of interest in over the webinar series. So I have a few questions for you at the end that we might chat about when you're finished. But for now, over to you, and thank you very much.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you very much, Eilish. Okay, so the strategy that we're going to look at is overcoming workplace wellbeing challenges in a transitioning to a post-COVID environment. A little bit about me. I implement workplace wellness frameworks to deliver workplace well-being to public and to private sector organisations. So basically help people meet their KPIs to become more resilient in every way. And I became involved in this because I'm passionate about health and well-being, and I wanted to share this with workers and teams everywhere. So I am a qualified teacher, and I have experience delivering wellbeing programs since 2012. So so if basically there are three factors to do with workplace wellbeing to consider. There's the individual, then there's the team, and then there's the organizational culture. So it's looking at those three factors together that makes an overall impact and difference in workplace well-being. So with the individual, you start off, look at yourself. Are you an individual in an organization? Are you an individual working as part of a team? Are you a sole trader? Are you a combination of those things? So how are you getting on? Transitioning in this post-COVID environment, these are questions just to ask yourself. Do you have a workplace well-being framework? Maybe you do, maybe you don't, but just look at where you are. How is your existing well-being framework getting on in this new post-COVID and transitioning to a post-COVID work environment? So they're just things to think about from your own point of view, because this is a time to stop and think, how are we getting on? Because everyone has different challenges at this time. So it's a matter of looking at what are your challenges and how are you meeting them? So individual well-being, really individual well-being, it's about 7 aspects. The most important thing is a healthy mind. A healthy lifestyle is the next. Healthy sleep is super important. And, we know these things. It's really just to trigger and make it part of a reminder in this post-COVID work environment. So it's really to see how can we implement these in a practical way. Healthy diet is super important for well-being. Moving is important. That's the type of exercise you do, whatever type of exercise that is, including it. Group activity. During this COVID time and moving out of it, actually it's interaction with other people in the workplace that I notice my clients are missing the most. And that's what's coming up as a recurring question over and over. And naturally, encouraging a smoke-free environment. So there are the 7 keystones of well-being. So then we're looking at the team. So first we've had the individual, then we're the team. We've got to look at the team during this time. Really having a meeting in whatever format is suitable now with your management to identify and get their engagement. So the team manager having their engagement in well-being, and for them to be interested in well-being. Are you the team manager? Are you the team leader? That actually filters down to your team, how you reflect your well-being, how you portray and interact in a real way with your well-being. You know, none of us have to be perfect at well-being, but it's a journey, and it's how we're seen to portray workplace well-being, but individual well-being as part of a team. Do you think it's important to take a break? Do you think it's important, you know, to include exercise in your life? Do you think show your team that softer side, that well-being side, which really, I suppose, this we're all in together has come forward. So possibly the team aspect has improved in some workplaces, and it's building on that and looking at that team and camaraderie spirit from a well-being point of view. So and then the team really identifying your team's needs, changing everything in this COVID time and post-COVID, changing day to day. So looking at that change and how are we evolving with it. So the team focus, what are you focusing on? How important is well-being to your team? You know, because this is not a one-size-fits-all. Well-being is not a one-size, and neither is overcoming, you know, COVID challenges. So you just identify how to move forward with well-being yourself and your team. Do you think well-being is important? Studies show that well-being promotes productivity and worker engagement. So it's not only helpful from a softly nice point of view, but also it helps with engagement and productivity. Now, you know, everyone is at a different stage with this. So you're just looking at it from your team's point of view. Moving on then from the individual, then to the team, but to the whole organization and organizational culture. So what is your organization's attitude to well-being? Is it that you just tick the boxes and saying, we're following a well-being program? Are you happy with certain aspects of your well-being program? Quite, you know, possibly that could be the case. Or are you at the start of your well-being journey in your organization? So it's just looking at that and tailoring a solution for you. You know, it's looking step by step to see what part of the journey are you on, and how can you improve that journey. So back to practicalities from an organizational point of view, the best practice is to meet with middle management, but also, of course, initially meet with senior managers. Look at what are your KPIs. What are you focusing on? What are your targets? And how can well-being help you with those targets? And so collecting data is important. Looking at your employee engagement, employee absenteeism, employee turnover and productivity. Of course, we have to bear in mind regulations and public health advice to do with individuals' health and returning to work in the COVID environment. But it's very important to keep a measurement of all of these aspects and see how is COVID affecting your workforce. Or if it's just you, how is it affecting you on your own? Or a small team, how is it affecting that team? So it just comes back to looking and tailoring to you. organizational culture. So consulting with employees, consult with middle management, and then to make it simple, I have a 7 critical question survey. So this is something you can do yourself, or if you need help with, I can help you with. So the same with organizational culture. These are the key aspects to look at, and questions to ask yourself about: healthy mind, healthy lifestyle, healthy sleep, healthy diet, move more, group activity, and smoke free. Organizational framework. So really, what you need is to have a specifically tailored program for your workforce. Partner with management for ongoing social change within the workplace wellbeing program, and review and measure your data. See, has absenteeism, see, has staff turnover changed, see how is productivity improving. So you've got to measure those, evolve and tailor your program on an ongoing basis, and have annual reviews. So that's the start of it. So what you want to do is promote a joint culture of collaboration. So working together, all this together approach for a healthy workforce, a productive workforce, an engaged workforce, and of course an engaged workforce stays loyal to their employer. And so what you're looking is to help a healthy tailored framework to establish a new culture of collaboration in this new workplace. If I can give any help with your framework, please contact me. You'll find me on LinkedIn, and or at the website, or the details attached. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Elizabeth. That it's so interesting. We might leave your details up there for a moment, and then maybe we can stop the share. A couple of things that struck me when you were talking. Firstly, talking about a workplace wellbeing framework. You mentioned, you might have one in place, you might not, but people might actually have some things in place that are wellness related for their staff or for themselves, but they don't even realize are that's what it is. You know what I mean? Whether it's a social club, or whether it's different gym memberships that they offer, whatever it might be. But have you come across that in companies before, that you go in and you realize there's all these little different things happening that just haven't been brought together into a framework?
Yeah, that's absolutely true. So a lot of companies would have there was a cake making competition in one company. Another, I had a golf society, and another, they sponsored their staff. They gave them a discount to go to a local gym. So they maybe have bits and pieces of the jigsaw. So it's really a jigsaw, and they have parts of it individually, or sometimes, maybe bosses are not talking to their staff about the well-being program they're doing themselves at home, and it's about integrating that, or to talk about well-being in work, so that it's part of the focus as one of the KPIs. So yeah, a lot of workplaces, and sometimes just caring about your staff, and for the staff to know they're cared about, and they have somebody they can go to officially or unofficially where the problem is a well-being program in itself. It's part of, if there is some kind of a culture of well-being in the organization, or sometimes they're counting steps, where everybody's measuring what they're walking unofficially, and nothing to do with the management, or they're in different teams. So very much so.
Yeah, and that's really interesting. Very often it could be staff-led, or staff can be a really rich source of ideas. It's
Absolutely.
what do you do in your personal space for your own well-being, and maybe that's something that could inform a wider practice in a company.
Absolutely, yeah.
Another thing I thought that was really interesting that you said is, you know, I love that you start with the individual. It's that kind of expression that you can't help anybody else until you help yourself, you know. So how important it is for, and particularly for our participants on the webinar series like yourself, you know, that are business owners, and can often feel a lot of pressure, a lot of stress, and feel like they have to keep going and keep going. And you know, burnout is, I think, a very real risk for SME owner managers. So that idea that you really can't help the organization until you help yourself is a really important point, I think.
Absolutely. You know, there are strategies that I have been giving owner managers at the moment to help them, you know, so it's really about setting up your workspace correctly, having a structure to your day, set alarms so that you take your breaks, because you are more productive if you take a break and you go back to your desk refreshed, revitalized after a 20-minute walk, or, you know, something where you've engaged and focused on something outside of work, and you come back to it with a clearer mind. And to include all of the 7 key points for workplace, for wellness, even to consider some of the points that appeal to you, or that you say, oh, even to remind yourself, how am I looking after myself? But yeah, sorry, did that answer the question?
Yeah, that's perfect. Thank you so much. I think we might have a look at, as I was saying earlier, there was quite a few questions over the actual webinar series where people were sending in things that they were curious about, or things that they were particularly finding to be a challenge. And there was a lot of commonality, as I'm sure you've come across with clients as well, a lot of commonality in the issues that people were experiencing. And it's something we've all, as we've moved to work from home, I think we're all going through this. I mean, my home office is a corner in my bedroom. So, you know, the bed is over there and the workplace is here. So the challenge of separating life and home life and work life is probably one of the biggest difficulties, I suppose, people have experienced. You know, is it okay to roll out of bed in the morning and go straight to the desk? You know, I might try and get a few hours in before the kids wake up or something like that. How is that as a work practice, or as a working from home practice?
You know, it's probably something you could do an odd time in an emergency, but as a rule of thumb, you're better to get out, walk around the block as if you were going to work. You know, get up, get dressed, and go for a walk. If at all possible, you know, you've got to look at what is possible with the kids, and if you've somebody else who can mind the children, just to take that space to clear your head and use your commute time to do something for you. So some people are actually finding and that it's working to their advantage working from home, and they're starting to run a structure properly through their day. So it's all about structure. Set an alarm to get up, set an alarm to go for your walk or to do something productive. Make sure you eat properly, keep healthful snacks at your desk. You know, look at your mental health. You know, say how are you feeling, what techniques and strategies do you use. Each person can say to themselves to keep a clear head. Of course, exercise helps with that. Focusing on something outside of work. You know, you've got to look and see how are you taking care of yourself? Because if you burn out, not you, Alish, but in general, if a person who's a business owner burns out, you know, that's the end of their business unless they have somebody else can step forward. So it's really about recharging your own battery and finding the right tools to do that. So
brilliant. I mean, you mentioned something there about snacks, because I think looking at my peers, my colleagues, you know, people that I'd be in contact with, I think one thing that people have done quite well in COVID is maybe getting out more into the fresh air, you know, and we had the 2K, we have the 5K restrictions, and people are maybe going for their daily walks, and there's loads of memes going around of dogs, family pets hiding that they don't want to go for yet another walk. So that's something people have maybe done.
Yes.
But maybe where people have found a challenge is on the diet side of things, that because we're home so much, and because maybe our little luxuries now are, you know, is the trip to the supermarket. I know I've definitely found myself buying more treats to have in the house. So on that healthy snacking, I think that's been a challenge for people. Have you any advice in that area?
Yeah, healthy snacking can be a challenge for people. A lot of people are doing that well as well. And actually home cooked snacks, even if it is a cake or something, that's better than a shop bought cake, you know, because there's a lot of time, energy, and pretty natural ingredients gone into it. So, but really, you keeping good snacks at your desk, you know, like walnuts are super good because they're good for brain and concentration. Blueberries, very, very good for the mind and for the brain cells. So, you know, the kind of things that you could keep at the desk are things that you really like and that you already know about. It's just, you might have kept them in your drawer at work, but you just forgot. So it's about making a plan for your meals that you're going to enjoy and being realistic about it and not giving yourself a hard time, because if people eat food and they're criticizing themselves at the same time, it's probably going to be even worse for them because it's bad for their mental health. So it's a time to have a realistic approach and, you know, have good quality fruit and snacks, nuts, seeds at your desk. It's a good idea.
Yeah, that's a really valuable advice, because I do think we forget the normal everyday practices that we would have had in our offices, where you had the little drawer and you were organized with what you were bringing in to eat for the day and so on. So yeah, that's really, really sensible advice. Something else that you've mentioned is, and I think a big emphasis on what you're saying, is to be kind to yourself, to recognize what's possible and what's realistic. So one of the things, I suppose, you know, a lot of people don't have a home office. They don't have a dedicated workspace that they can make, or maybe they've created a dedicated workspace, but it's invading in their personal space, like in my situation, for example. What do you do, or how do you manage if you can't have a set place, a dedicated workspace at home? Is there any way you can handle that transition when you're, you know, maybe trying to work in the living room, the kitchen table, whatever it might be, and possibly having many others in the household doing the same?
You know what? It's all about communication. First off, communicate with the people around you, the people in your workplace. Let them know your situation, because this is a time where we're realizing, look, this is real. This is how I am. This is what I'm doing. I'm doing my best from home, but realistically, this is what I can do. So having real chats, and people will see one another in a more realistic way. Communicate with kids, communicate with partners that are there, if there's a partner in the house, so that, you know, everything is done in a fair way and as best you can. So all any of us can do is the best we can at this time. And of course, our children have to be our priority. So it's no harm to say that to the workplace. This is what I'm doing, and people have to look at what they can do going forward and what will and can work from a practical point of view. So it's about setting up a dedicated workspace, but only if you can. If you can't, it's about taking your turn at the kitchen table and doing the very best you can. So it's a little bit realistic as well as practical, you know, keeping the KPIs in mind for work, but also saying, look, this is what's realistic, this is what's practical. And some people are coming up with new and innovative ways of doing their job, and solutions, and possibly finding faster ways to get to the end KPI than previously. And the new workforce will not necessarily be 9 to 5 at our desk going forward. There will be solutions, and it's about believing those solutions and working at practical ways. It's not a one size fits all for anybody. And it's really congratulations to anyone who's got this far and has evolved to be sitting at a desk and doing their very best, considering everything. Wherever you are in your workplace, it's about well done for being here and getting this done so far, and for evolving, because we have evolved as a society, and from this global pandemic.
I think, yeah. I mean, another thing that's come up, I suppose I'm kind of throwing you the challenges that I've experienced or others have said that they're experiencing. But there's been positives too, hasn't there? I think you're right. There is going to be an evolution, a change. And I suppose there's going to be more and more people who say, actually, this works. This works for me. This works for my employer, or this works for my team if I'm the employer. So what are those upsides, or what changes or shifts do you think we're going to see in the post-COVID workplace?
Yeah, we're going to see more flexibility. We're going to see more respect for people's home life as well, and a kindness where we're all in this together, and seeing your co-workers as real people, as opposed to people that show up 9 o'clock every day, or not. I mean, that hasn't been the case for everybody, but very often. So it's really seeing people from a more kind, human point of view, and looking and saying what is possible. And people will look, and workplaces are looking at what has been achieved so far, and they're saying, how can we help that to evolve? So I know certainly the government in New Zealand and in a lot of other countries, they're funding their staff to stay at home. Google are giving $1,000 allowance for people to get homework equipment, home desk office equipment. So it will be, people possibly will find a way to work with their employer to find a solution that works for them. But it's not a one size fits all, and I think that's how workplaces will see it going forward. What works, and it'll be about results, not about just sitting at a desk 9 to 5.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's the outcome, isn't it? That it's not a one size fits all. That there is room, there is space for lots of different work modes, work practices.
Yes,
and that's probably, that conversation is probably what's going to come out of this. As one of the major positives.
Yeah.
One thing, I suppose, we're so many weeks into this now, months into this at this point. I suppose there is a slight element of people starting to lose their motivation. So as you say, congratulations and well done to everybody. We've survived this far. I think it probably was survival mode to begin with, and now we've got our routine, or hopefully, or we're starting to get some sort of shape on what we're doing. But people are maybe plateauing a little bit in terms of motivation. That burnout word again, not to use it too lightly, but I think it's something that people are maybe starting to feel a little bit. That distance of time now is starting to have an impact. Is there anything people can do to address a lack of motivation when they're working from home?
I think absolutely. Again, take out your list of what's important to you and your well-being. Make a list. Just say if it's an individual, a team, or a group, it's really to look at the key factors. Say, how is my mental health? If somebody needs help, get help at this point, because that's important. People, it's okay to say I need help. It's okay to get help. It's okay to say to your employer, I need help. And looking at all aspects, looking at exercise, as you say, a lot of people are covering that probably better than ever. Looking at building in a mindfulness program, relaxation, meditation into your daily practices. If you feel to do that, if you don't like to do a meditation, there is a specific tailored, focused 20-minute walk that you can do, that you can clear your mind, and it's a technique that can be taught. it's kind of a walking meditation, more or less. So not all meditation suits everybody. So you look at the aspects that you need: mind, body, food, look at smoking. Don't be afraid to go for a medical checkup if you need to. At this point, you can phone your doctor and see if you feel unwell in any way at all. It's super important that you look after your well-being, because that's something that's brought to the fore by even our government at the moment, that we need to look after our well-being, and you know, that's important. Look and see where you need to improve, and make a list and start there, as an individual and as a team, as an organization. And what do you think? How did I answer that question, Eilish?
Yeah, that's perfect, Elizabeth. I mean, that makes perfect sense. I think it is a matter of, and you addressed it in your presentation, you got to check in with yourself, you got to check in with your team, and then you got to look at the wider, I suppose, culture across the organization. And doing that regularly gives you the opportunity then to see, okay, I need to address something here, whether it's for me personally, or whether it's for a member of my team or a particular group within my organization. And I think Fergal McCormack, for example, in the webinar talked about that sense check that they do with their staff on a weekly basis, you know, and that it's okay to say, look, I was knocking it out of the park for 6 weeks, but now I'm finding it tough, and you know, maybe there's an intervention needed, or something has happened to interrupt the flow of what I've been doing. So I think it's really important that people remember it's an ever-evolving situation. We didn't just flip to working from home and that's it, and it's carried on as normal. To that continuous checking in process, I think, is something you've highlighted really well.
Absolutely, yeah. And looking at all areas, you know, and communicating what you need and what will work for you, your team, your organization, because, you know, it's new for all of us. So it's really actually the checking in process. It can change how things are when you check in can change, because even people who are working from home now, there's so much staggering going back to work. How does that feel? How's that working for them? You know, so it's really staggering a solution, and evolving with the check-in process to see what works.
Yeah.
Brilliant. And staying, just, you know, just remind yourself what's important, you know.
Yeah, get the priorities right, do what must be done,
exactly.
and give yourself the space to work on everything else and figure it out. Elizabeth, that's been brilliant, really, really useful, really insightful. Thank you so much for your time. What we're going to do is pop the video up on the website, and we'll put together the little blurb with all I know your contact details are in the slideshow you did earlier, but people will also be able to access it on the website, or find you on LinkedIn, of course, if they have any queries, or if they want to get in touch with you in relation to any of the things we've been chatting about today. So thank you so much for your time, and yeah, thanks a million from all the participants.
Oh, thank you so much, Eilish. Really appreciate that. Thank you.